The conference room door closed with a soft click, and two young actors found themselves facing Hollywood's biggest prejudice. Los Angeles, 1989. Creative Artists Agency offices, 9th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Sunset Boulevard. Morning light filtering through expensive blinds, casting geometric shadows across the polished mahogany conference table. The room smells like leather chairs, fresh coffee, and the particular tension that accompanies career-defining meetings. Awards and industry photos line the walls. Decades of Hollywood success stories frozen in silver frames. River Phoenix sits in one of the plush chairs, 19 years old, wearing a simple black sweater and faded jeans. His blonde hair is longer now, more tousled, reflecting his transition from teen roles to more complex characters. Beside him, Johnny Depp, 26, dressed in a worn leather jacket over a white t-shirt, dark hair falling across his forehead. Both actors carry scripts for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, the drama that could elevate them from television and teen movie actors to serious dramatic performers. They'd arrived separately, but ended up in the same meeting, both being considered for different roles in the same project. River for the intellectually disabled younger brother, Arnie, Johnny for the title character, Gilbert. The casting director had suggested they read together, test their chemistry as brothers, dealing with family dysfunction and small-town suffocation. The morning had gone better than either expected. Their first scene together crackled with authentic sibling energy. Johnny's world-weary Gilbert perfectly balancing River's enthusiastic, childlike Arnie. The casting director, Maria Santos, made notes with visible excitement. These weren't just individual performances. This was the kind of natural connection that makes movies memorable. "Interesting dynamic," Maria had whispered to her assistant. "They're not acting like brothers. They are brothers in this moment." But now, waiting for the director's final assessment, tension fills the air like static before a thunderstorm. James Morrison enters the room with the confident stride of a man who's directed 3 successful dramas and believes he understands exactly what serious filmmaking requires. 52 years old, graying beard, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of intense focus that intimidates actors into either greatness or paralysis. His last film earned 4 Oscar nominations. His opinion carries the weight of critical acclaim and industry respect. Morrison settles into the chair across from them, opening a leather portfolio filled with notes, headshots, and what looks like a decision matrix comparing potential casting choices. He studies both actors for a long moment, the way a surgeon examines X-rays before making an incision. "River, Johnny," Morrison begins, his voice carrying professorial authority. "You both did interesting work today. The chemistry reads as authentic, the emotional moments felt genuine, and you clearly understand the characters' relationship dynamic." River nods respectfully. Johnny remains characteristically still, those dark eyes watching Morrison with careful attention. "However," Morrison continues, setting down his pen and leaning back in his chair, "I have significant concerns about this casting direction. This isn't just any drama. This is a serious exploration of family dysfunction, mental disability, and small-town desperation. It requires actors with gravitas, with depth, with the ability to handle complex emotional material." The temperature in the room seems to drop. Maria shifts uncomfortably in her chair. Morrison stands, walking to the window overlooking the busy street below. The truth is, and I need to be completely direct about this, I don't think 21 Jump Street actors can do drama. Not real drama. Not the kind of nuanced, challenging work this script demands. The words hit like a physical blow. River's face remains composed, but his hands tighten slightly on the script. Johnny's jaw clenches almost imperceptibly. Morrison turns back to face them, his expression serious, but not unkind. "Johnny, you've spent 3 years playing a teenage undercover cop on television. That's fine work, entertaining television, but it's essentially action-adventure with youth appeal. It's not dramatic acting. It's not the kind of preparation that translates to serious film-making." He walks closer to their chairs, his tone taking on the patience of a teacher explaining basic concepts to slow students. Television acting and film acting are different disciplines entirely. Television rewards big gestures, clear emotions, simple character arcs that can be resolved in 42 minutes. Film drama, especially this kind of intimate family study, requires subtlety, restraint, the ability to convey complex internal states without overplaying. Morrison's attention shifts to River. "River, your situation is somewhat different, but equally problematic. You've done some film work, yes, but mostly coming-of-age stories and teen romance. Stand By Me was a lovely film, but it was essentially about children having an adventure. That's not dramatic acting either. That's naturalistic performance, which works for certain genres, but doesn't translate to serious adult drama." The silence that follows is suffocating. Maria looks at her notes, avoiding eye contact. Morrison returns to his chair, clearly believing he's delivered necessary but difficult truth. "What both of you need to understand," Morrison continues, "is that this industry has categories for a reason. There are television actors, teen movie actors, action stars, and dramatic actors. Trying to jump between categories rarely works, and when it fails, it damages everyone involved. The actors, the project, the investors." River and Johnny exchange a glance, some silent communication passing between them. Morrison opens his portfolio again, consulting his notes. "I'm not saying you lack talent. Both of you have appealing screen presence, good instincts for certain types of material. But serious drama requires life experience, emotional depth, the kind of gravitas that comes from years of challenging work. You simply haven't earned the right to handle this level of material yet." 4 seconds pass. The room holds its breath. Maria stops taking notes entirely. Then River Phoenix stands up slowly. Johnny follows immediately, both actors rising with a dignity that suddenly makes them seem older, more substantial than their years might suggest. River speaks first, his voice quiet, but carrying absolute conviction. "Mr. Morrison, I think you're confusing the medium with the message, and you're making assumptions about our abilities based on other people's limited vision of what we could do." Morrison raises an eyebrow, surprised by River's response. River continues, his tone remaining respectful, but gaining strength with each word. "You say television actors can't do drama, but that assumes television work is automatically less demanding than film work. Johnny has spent 3 years creating a complex character who has to be believable as both a teenager and an adult, who has to handle action sequences and emotional scenes, who has to make exposition feel natural and relationships feel real. That's not simple work." Johnny steps forward slightly, supporting River's point. "The format doesn't determine the quality of the work. The commitment does. I've watched River create characters that are more honest and complex than what I see in most serious dramas. River nods, building on Johnny's support. And you say teen movies don't prepare actors for adult drama, but Stand By Me was about death, friendship, growing up in difficult circumstances, finding courage when you don't feel brave. Those aren't simple themes just because the characters were young. Morrison listens with growing attention, clearly not expecting this level of articulation from actors he'd already categorized. River's confidence grows as he speaks. The characters in Gilbert Grape aren't complex because they're adults. They're complex because they're human beings dealing with love, responsibility, frustration, and hope. Those emotions don't require a specific age or resume to understand and portray. Johnny adds quietly, "We didn't come here to prove we're not television actors or teen movie actors. We came here to prove we understand these characters and can serve this story honestly." River looks directly at Morrison, his green eyes holding steady contact. "Give us the chance to show you what we can do with this material. Not based on our previous work or your assumptions about what those credits mean. Based on our understanding of Gilbert and Arnie and the story you want to tell." The silence that follows is completely different from before. Not uncomfortable, but charged with possibility and mutual respect. Morrison studies both actors with new attention, seeing past his preconceptions for the first time. "That's actually a very mature perspective on the work," Maria nods enthusiastically. "The passion they just showed, that's exactly what these characters need." Morrison makes a decision that surprises everyone, including himself. "All right, you've made your point about not being limited by categories. Let's do a more challenging scene, something that will really test your dramatic range." Over the next hour, River and Johnny perform scenes that showcase their depth, their chemistry, their understanding of complex family dynamics. They don't get the roles. They ultimately go to Johnny Depp, Gilbert, and Leonardo DiCaprio, Arnie, but their auditions become legendary in casting circles. Morrison tells people about it for years afterward, not as a story about being wrong, but as a lesson about looking beyond an actor's previous work. "Those two young men taught me something important," Morrison says in interviews. "Real dramatic actors aren't defined by their resume. They're defined by their understanding of human nature and their commitment to serving the story. River and Johnny proved that talent doesn't have categories." The audition becomes part of both actors' legends. River goes on to earn an Oscar nomination for My Own Private Idaho. Johnny transforms from teen TV star to one of the most respected actors of his generation. Years later, after River's death, Johnny remembers that day as pivotal in both their careers, not because of the roles they didn't get, but because of the stand they took together. "River taught me something that day," Johnny says in interviews, "that you don't fight prejudice by accepting it. You fight it by doing work so good that the categories become meaningless." 4 seconds in a conference room in 1989. One moment when two young actors refused to be limited by Hollywood's narrow thinking. One choice that showed an entire industry what real talent looks like when it refuses to accept artificial boundaries. The audition that changed how casting directors think about an actor's potential. Not because they fit the expected categories, but because they understood that great acting transcends any single genre or medium.